Welcome to the Cherland podcast, where normally I interview another musician, but to celebrate the release of my new record, Lake, my wife, Layne, is going to be interviewing me about these songs and what they mean to me. I hope you enjoy this conversation with me and Layne about Lake. Hi.
How you feeling?
Fine. It's weird to talk to you in this setting.
Yeah. I thought you would probably be a little awkward.
Yeah. It is awkward. This is not how we normally talk or relate.
This is not how we talk or relate.
Ever.
In fact, we rarely talk or relate about anything.
7 years. It's the worst.
Oh, you guys thought we were talking about the podcast format? I just meant conversation.
I just meant general chemistry.
Anyways, my name is Layne Cherland. I'm your wife.
I'm Cherland. I'm your husband.
Welcome me to your podcast.
Welcome you.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be
my
here.
podcast.
I'm so happy to be here. And by here, I mean on our sofa in our living room where we've been all damn day.
Mm-hmm. You have.
I have.
Mm-hmm. Not I.
What have you been doing today?
Meeting up, practicing for the album release party. Then I went for a run.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was in the room submitting lyrics to Music Smatch.
To smatch your lyrics.
Such a stupid spelling.
To your music.
Musix.
Oh.
Match.
Uh-oh.
Music
That's so
Smatch.
much worse than I thought. I had spelled music normally and then smatch. And then when you said it was bad, I had switched the music to a K and still had it be smatch.
No, that's
All
awful.
of those are not as bad as the real thing.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
These are adults who named these companies.
Yeah, I think about that a lot. I cannot believe that all companies are run by adults.
It's probably a domain issue. Musicmatch.com was probably already taken.
Sure.
Because that's clearly what they thought of.
Yeah. But the reason that we're better than AI is because we can generate like creative solutions.
Yeah.
And music's match, no good. Anyways, the reason that I'm here is to talk to you about your music. And the reason that I'm specifically here to talk to you about your music
Because no one else does.
is because it's hard to talk about your music.
It's true.
You, over the last couple of years, have been on this like very intense personal process, as it always is before you make an album. At the far end of that process, there's just people who are like, oh, an album's out. A thing just like appears and even pops up on their Spotify screen now that you have that cool thing happening that just says like, hey, everybody. Marquee. Very cool tool. So like nobody else has been here to see the back end of that process. There's just this thing that pops up on Spotify and now there's an album and then they listen to it. And then the kind of natural thing that people do is just be like, hey, Connor, what's it about? And that seems normal and simple and like a totally reasonable thing to ask, except for you, you're like, what have my years been about? What have I been observing on the grand and super minute scale this whole time? This like, not only the process of what the songs are about, these like deep, soulful considerings that you've done alone in private, but then also the process of like crafting words around those feelings and then adding music to those, matching that correctly, and then choosing people to help you actually make it, and then the incredibly long and strange journey from that demo that you made to like it filtering through other people and collecting money to prop up this thing that mattered, like this whole long textured, vibrant, colorful thing. And people are like, what's it about? And you're like,
Yeah.
And it sends you, I see you go into a state of overwhelm, immediately followed by a state of defensiveness.
Yeah. Followed by anger.
Yes, just deep rage.
I'm sure this is how parents feel when they're like, hey, how's your kid?
Yeah.
I mean, like, he's great. I don't know how to describe. He's like a whole person. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
do you know you're doing the thing again where you compare yourself to parents?
Yeah.
Connor's been in trouble before, listener, for this exact thing.
Yeah.
This is a more reasonable time.
What's another example? I don't know. Like when you go on like a really big trip, let's say you had like a month-long trip to Paris or something, and you get back and people are like, how was it?
Right.
which is a totally fair question.
Yeah, or like a spiritual pilgrimage. You walk that trail from Spain to France, and then people are like, did you have a good time? And you're like, good? Did you have a good time?
Yeah. You mean transformational?
You mean beyond words? Unquantifiable?
You want to know how Thailand was? It's indescribable.
It's just everything
Howard.
brings us right back to the office. So I am sort of here to help kind of hopefully slip past some of your defenses, because I was there the whole time. I couldn't possibly be asking you questions without context, because I've been right here.
Yeah, you are the context.
600 square feet of apartment the whole time. Certainly everyone will understand that we've probably had the most depthful, well-rounded conversations about this. And I would love for them to get to hear some of what I've heard.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm here.
Yeah, that's fair. I've realized there are concentric circles of ability for me to be myself. And it's like me alone. It's like as close as I can get to being myself.
Sure.
And then there's me with you. And then there's me with you and Greg.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's like...
Best friend Greg.
Yeah. And then there's kind of like everything else outside of that. There's a really big leap. There's a giant gap.
Mm-hmm. There are sporadic individuals who, really having nothing to do with how long you've known them or even how frequently you see them, there just are occasional people in your life, sort of like randomly cast through your life souls who match to you in a really lovely way. Mm-hmm. And when you come in contact with them, you feel like profoundly and specially seen in a way that's like unique to your chemistry with that person, which I relate to very deeply. I think we're similar in that way.
Right.
But those aren't people who are consistently around.
Right.
It's not like, oh, this is a group of people who consistently knows me. It's like, oh God, every once in a while I feel really seen by this person.
Right. I can describe it better to people I don't know because they don't have like a preconception of me. So I can just kind of talk to the heart of what it is versus like having to work through people's assumption of me. Like Greg, as he continues to like recount to people in my current life what I was like in high school, he'll be like, yeah, you were the type of person that would like disappear and then reappear, and you'll disappear and then you'll come back and be like, I vomited, but it wasn't something they were privy to. Yeah. And like I feel it's a necessary part of me to, at this point, because I don't have as strong of a sense of self as I would like, it's like a necessary part of me to go off to find myself and then to reemerge and like rebrand.
Sort of convey that.
Yeah.
You can't just have your experience in the moment in front of people. You have to like sort of go have it, understand it, and then kind of bring it to them.
Right. Which is why I tend to cultivate seasons of people of like, this is the group that like fits into this mold and believes this one particular thing, and then years pass and we all change, and then there's a new crop and we all believe a similar thing, or like, and that becomes more and more broad as we age. But like, whether it be like we are boy jock volleyball players to like we are Christians in college to like we are artists in LA. That's what we are. The life we live is very unique, understood by very few people. It doesn't make sense what you're about to do, which is spend tens of thousands of dollars to make songs, which is stupid.
Yeah. Tens of thousands of dollars distributed. That's a projection over many an album, to be clear.
Yeah.
But yes.
Yeah, it's fair. If you spend
tens of thousands of dollars,
that means that you spent at least 20,000. Right.
Yes, there have to be at least two tens.
Two tens, not 1 10
not
and
one
change.
10 and change. No.
Yeah. Okay.
That's just $15,000.
That's thousands.
That's thousands.
Grousins.
Yeah. It's grousins, if you will. It's always been G's in my book.
It's always been G's in my book.
Speaking of age and changing, many months ago, we talked about way before the album cycle really had started, you were probably finalizing songs, like finalizing the giant batch of songs to then pick these 10. We had a conversation kind of like this, but in private. I asked you some questions about like, what is this art and who is it for? And I'm just going to read that back to you, and then you can
fun.
respond.
Fun.
I'm making this stuff because there's a lack of it. Most of what people imbibe is love songs. It's the most emotional thing to talk about and some of the least fertile ground for growing the self. I spent most of my time focused on that from 0 to 23, and now I'm trying to make art about everything else. Love is the most important thing, and it colors everything else. But Hosier doesn't write love songs. He writes songs about love and how it exists in the world. I want to make music about love and fill in the blank. And when I asked you who the album is for, or who this next portion of your art is for, you said it's for people like me, anybody who feels the way I feel. I don't think teenagers would get it, not under 20s. I'm not making art for people who are in the budding of their youth. I'm making art for people who have lived a little bit of life and are starting to see something. It's for the people in the second part of their life. That's when you get a sense of what you want to do and who's going to be with you and where you want to go. And then, now what? People who feel let down by all the answers of the first half of life. The old ideas have just stopped working. So that, to me, I feel like what is this album about has honed in, and I want to get into that too. But if you could start by responding to this broader, more far away idea.
I think it's really well said.
I think so too. That's why I wrote it down.
That's fascinating to hear. I've been trying to figure out ways to describe like what this album is about. Is this album about death? Sure. But really what this album is about love. And like, I have deep love, and so death is hard. Mm-hmm. I have deep love, so letting our love change over time as we age is also hard.
Yeah.
And beautiful. And it's something to be cherished and mourned. And I just don't think the majority of music gives room for things to be cherished and mourned. And that's like the people that I gravitate to most. I feel like they have that.
Yeah.
That guy who I just saw, Bill Dank, he has this song, and one of the verses says, "Lately my world's been growing bigger, and growing means pain." Mm-hmm. And I think that's just like the beautiful, I mean, I bring up the Jerry Seinfeld quote all the time of him saying pain is information entering the body very quickly. And I think like death and the consequences of death can sometimes like crystallize feelings of love in this really interesting way. Mm-hmm. And the looming threat of death crystallizes love in a interesting way, sometimes very unhealthy way. Yeah, so this album is about, I think it's about love, and I think it's about wanting something, coming to terms with not getting what you want.
One of the things that we've talked about as a theme of the album that I haven't seen really portrayed yet in any of your talking about it is, we talk about it as being about loss, but loss coming in so many different ways through age and death or disease or change or growth. But I've heard you talk about it as like really zooming in on the part of grief. Really, it's talking about the after of loss. Like the loss happened and now we're still alive. And so what are sort of like looking at all the pieces that are left and watching other people in your life go through so many different kinds of things and then living after the thing is over. A lot of this music being sort of flavored by the essence of having had the thing.
Right.
Like I had the thing that I wanted and now it's not here for a huge variety of reasons. It was here in my hands and now it's not here in my hands, but I still have these hands. So what's in them and what are they wrapped around and where do I put them and what do I do with them? Because I had it and now it's gone.
I think about that a lot with people losing their hair and their teeth.
Whoa.
Because those were yours. And they're like some of the hardest things to grapple with. They were parts of you. And they're things.
When you say losing their teeth, do you mean like when older people don't have any teeth anymore? Or do you mean like babies losing their teeth or like teeth getting knocked out or just generally like that was my bone and now it's not my bone?
I mostly meant like as you age and like losing teeth, and like it was very sad for me to like lose one of my teeth to a root canal.
Yeah.
And just being like, whoa, I had that part.
Yeah.
And now one of those isn't even real. Like that's not even me.
That.
Yeah.
Your mom grew that when she grew
Yeah,
you.
it's crazy.
That's crazy.
The stress dreams of like your teeth falling out, the stress dreams of my hair falling out, the like reality of just like losing hair over time. Like it all feels related to me of like this thing that I love and identify with and like is a part of me, and now it's gone. And some of that being natural and some of that being accelerated. Loretta's about death, but the vibe of it is kind of fun because it's like what happens when you see the decline coming and it's really reasonable and you've had a long life, and like it's not a surprise,
right?
And there's a lot of fun to be had between now and then. That's the smooth, long off ramp. And there are moments where you're like, oh, is this it? But technology's good. So like there's a lot of things that would have been it, you know, just like aging.
Right.
If you're going to age out of life, they can take you all the way to the end with like some pretty good quality of life. I think that's different. That's a very different thing to grapple with than something taken from you before it's time.
Yeah. An interesting mechanic is happening in my brain right now where I know what you're talking about, and you drew in this album from so many different parts of your life, and there are so many individual people in your life who could concretely find themselves in it, and a lot of them would be right, and a lot of them would be wrong, and a lot of them would be wrong about which part, would guess wrong about which part. So I actually just heard you describe a circumstance, which is actually just about my grandmother who has dementia. And is just like doing the last part of her life, the last long part of her life in my dad's house. So we see her. My grandparents live with my dad now, and my family's around all the time, just like being with them and playing with them. And a lot of the fun imagery in that song is drawn very directly from my family and my hometown and my house and speaks to my grandmother. But there are other people in your life who, in what you just described, could read a totally different situation into that.
That's true.
And there's an interesting thing in watching you try to talk about this, where you are trying to maintain kind of a purposeful vagueness.
Yeah.
Because you're drawing from other people's lives in a lot of ways, but also because a lot of the things that the album touches on are really painful, either to you or to others. So you're just in kind of this interesting quandary.
This interesting
to such
vagueness.
a degree that I felt the need to even be specific about being like, what he just said is not about that other thing. It's about this thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You know me, I think you should just out with it, but it's not my stories to tell.
I don't really know the role of art in society, like what its purpose is. Like there's this thing where like you're not supposed to say exactly what it's about.
Right.
Because if you say exactly what it's about, then this song can't be yours. It's mine. It's mine and it's about my stuff. You can't put yourself in it.
The listener.
Yeah.
I see.
Because like, obviously you can put yourself in it because you know what it's about. It is about like you and your people. It's like, we're experiencing that the same, but like, I'm worried that if I start talking about precisely what these things are about, they're going to lose their potency. I want to be very protective over what these songs can do. And if I say what they're for and what they do and what they're about, then that's all they'll ever be.
Yeah.
And I don't want to speak that over them. I don't want to limit them in what that is. And I know what I was thinking about. And like for people who are with me during that time, they can guess what it's about. Yeah. And if people ask me like direct questions in person, I will answer those things because I'm not afraid to say those things. I will refuse to answer the question if they haven't like participated in the art.
Does that just mean listening? You just need them to listen?
Or like if someone listens to it and it's just like, hey, what's this about? It's like, well, tell me what you think it's about. Yeah. I put in a lot of thought into this, and like it means something to me. Like before I tell you about Daniel Radcliffe, tell me who you thought Harry Potter was. Like that's before Daniel Radcliffe, we all had a Harry Potter. And then there was only Daniel Radcliffe. And there was something lost. And like we all had an Aragorn. And then we got Viggo, which is like,
to be clear, perfect.
Perfect.
It's the first time in cinema history that they absolutely nailed it.
Perfect. But, you know,
Yeah. Yes. You lose something when it becomes overly defined.
he was yours.
Yes.
He was yours in your mind, and he only looked like that in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something real about that. I don't know why I'm getting emotional about it, because the majority of people I have in my life are non-artists.
Mm-hmm.
And they so quickly want to hear exactly in words. They want to talk with me in words about what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm trying to say, I can't tell you that.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, you could just tell us what it's about. And me being like, if I could just say it, if I had that power, then I would use that power. And that's not my power. So I'm going to like say it in the way that I know how.
Right.
Because there's like, music has a tone to it. Music is a different language than English. And in order to say certain things, I needed to use those languages. If I say to you, like, how could you throw out your brother? It like means something different now in this context than in the context of brother, where that's the chorus, you know? And these things don't have a fixed meaning to me. I, in my own mind, have a practice where I allow the song to continue to speak to me throughout the years. A song that I wrote in like 2016, Letters from Emily, like that's a song I didn't understand until like 2019, like 2018, 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And then on a car ride, I like started crying like while listening to it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think it means this.
Yeah.
And then I got pulled over by a cop for speeding. But like,
music is dangerous.
there is something, everyone wants like me to be the architect of these things. And it's like, look, to some degree, I entirely am.
Right.
I'm picking all the words and the melodies and all this, but I'm like, can there not be some like mysterious part of my soul that is active during this time that speaks? And even I don't know what's going on necessarily. I'm just saying the words that feel right in sequence.
Mm-hmm.
And then I look back on it and I'm like, I don't know, but I agree with it. I think that's the piece that people just really want me to be like, what's it about? And again, I can say it in these like vague terms, and that sucks, because it's like people want there to be a narrative, you know. Boy gets dumped, spends 3 months in woods, writes for Emma, Bon Iver.
Yeah. We know exactly who this Taylor Swift song is about, and now we hate him for all the reasons we extrapolated from these very, very simple yet beautiful, no shade, lyrics.
Yeah.
Now we know why we hate John Mayer exactly.
Yeah. And it's cool because people want to relate to a character, and that character in this situation is me, which is cool.
Yeah.
But I don't want to relate. I just don't want that to be the role of my art, as this like there are statistics about me, and there are other ways to get to know me in like very real, authentic ways.
Yeah.
And then there are things that I genuinely don't know how to say, so I write songs.
Right.
And I think that should just be allowed.
Mm-hmm.
And like other people can extrapolate on it, and I can be like, wow, that's super cool that you think that. And then stay silent, because their interpretation might be different from what I thought it was about. But they might be right.
Yes.
They might legitimately be like Joe Beal, who made the album art. He knows how to articulate me probably better than I do, because he's listened to my music, and he's like intensely listened to my music.
Wow.
When he was describing in that video, he was just like, yeah, he was like, your piece matches my work, because it's a singular person facing away. And he was like, I often see like we're in this image, we're third person viewing you from behind. And he was like, and honestly, I think that's a lot of what you are. You are an observer. And you're in it at the same time. You are the observer and you're in it. And he was like, because you're so empathetic, you feel these things. You might not like have suffered, but you experience these things. And he was like, these characters that I draw, and the character that we're drawing for you is going through something psychological and actual, and having to overcome it triumphantly, and being like, And so he like says all these things. I'm like,
Yeah. This is the story of the last 5 years of your life.
You're a genius.
You just told, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, I didn't tell him that.
Right.
I sung him that.
Yeah.
And then he got me. And then he was able to say me back to me. That is what I hope for my art as like at least for a part of it, that it can like be a compass for myself.
Yeah.
To like actually know. It looks like we're about to hold hands. To like actually know who I am.
Hold hands.
Terrible chemistry. Never hold hands.
Never speak.
Never talk. First time talking. Hey, caller. First time talking.
It's going really well, I must say.
First time caller.
Long time listener.
Long time listener.
Oh man, you were saying something so nice. Those jokes came right in the middle of something so beautiful.
No, it's okay. Joe Bill's great. And I want my art to be able to be a compass for myself as the years go on. And I'm always like looking back and cringing at the art that I make. I cringe more when I feel like it was me trying to be someone else.
Mm.
You know, there's stuff on this album that I feel like I'm trying to be someone else. And then there are certain parts where I'm like, this sounds like no one. And that's cool. I mean, you're always going to be the melding of all your influences, but like the way that those things are intertwining inside of me is continuing to grow, and I don't have to sound like Hozier if I don't want to, and I don't have to like pretend to be Bon Iver if I don't want to. Though still that is like a large way that I write, but I don't know what my point is now.
It's a beautiful point. We just heard Neil Gaiman on an interview talk about how many episodes into the Sandman comic it took before he was like, stopped seeing himself do an impression of this artist or this author or that whomever. And he's like, oh, it's about 8, where I look at it now and I go, oh, there I am. There's my voice. And I think that we find ourselves through the like manic intake of things that we love that make us feel something.
Yeah.
And then we get to sort our own feelings because we're stimulated through something. And then the output then has to be a practice of let me try it this way, let me try this way, let me try this way. And then after a long time and a lot of output, which you've now done, I think we find something that actually belongs to us.
Right.
Hopefully, if we're lucky.
Yeah, or at least makes you feel like how those artists make you feel. Even if it's not your voice, you know, it can still be good, even if it's like copy-ish.
I was thinking about this conversation earlier, and one of my thoughts was this. During the pandemic, we all watched Bo Burnham deliver the first piece of pandemic art that meant anything about the experience that we were going through. And I know in our household, it felt like water. Like, oh my God, there's something here that's going to satiate something, anything from these like very, very hungry souls in that space. And then we had a really long conversation about what post-pandemic art would be like.
Right.
And how important art was going to be after we were out of at least that space of tremendous fear and of just knowing that like active, just like watching numbers that represent people just flowing all the time and being like, at some point we're going to be after this and we're going to need to reflect this huge psychic loss, like full planetary loss. And we tried to talk about what that could be like.
Right.
And I feel like this album exists well within the category of post-pandemic art about like we had things and those things are gone, almost like Avengers Endgame, like post-blip when the second one opens, everybody's like in weird therapy sessions or trying to figure out like what do we do now that, and obviously we didn't lose half the world, but like there is this thing of being like, oh, it's kind of flinchy still of like, oh gosh, I think that really is behind us. But then because of the magic of humanity, we adapt so quickly that I also forget all the time that even happened. And then sometimes I remember like, oh my God. And yet here we are existing in this space and having to be like, what is it now? What's the world? I guess I just want to congratulate you on a proper piece of post-pandemic art.
Oh, thanks. To have things to say about post-pandemic art. What I will say is that it's really bizarre to be in Los Angeles during, I mean, they're like pop is like very big in Los Angeles. So a lot of songs are about love and getting it on and the break of dawn. partying till the break of dawn.
Breakups.
And breakups. Oh, so many breakups. I like a good breakup song.
Mm-hmm.
I think a good breakup song is cool. I'm at a different stage in my life where breakup songs should really be divorce songs. It's not like screw that guy or like screw that girl. It's like, wow, look how slow the glacier moved. And now we're both stranded. And like, I don't recognize you. And I think I know you. I think I know you better than you know you.
Yeah.
And there's like, we're in our 30s now. We're learning about the world, and there's higher stakes. And I just don't see that being portrayed in the majority of the art that I take in. And maybe I'm just taking in the wrong stuff.
Sure.
So I could use more song recommendations. Absolutely. There just aren't songs about like human suffering in a way that I find helpful.
Mm.
The majority, how does this tie into post-pandemic?
Doesn't have to.
I think it does, and there's like this state of amnesia, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone like wants to. This is a good. I don't know why I need to bring James Baldwin into this, but I will. I will because everybody's been quoting him. He talks about the difference between peace and liberation. He's like, the reason why we have to fight for liberation instead of peace is because people think peace is what we had before, and liberation is this different thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I've seen some shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like. I was in Isla Vista when like there was a mass shooting. I was in Santa Barbara when like there was this giant pandemic, when there was that giant mudslide.
Yeah.
I've been screwed over by multiple business owners. Like I've run this business for 7 years. We've been married for 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've seen friends come and go. I've seen couples come and go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've been betrayed. You've been disappointed. You've been a lot of things that you hadn't been when we first got married when you were 24.
Yeah. And like
writing really different songs.
The majority of pop art, it's doing a better job at bringing some of these things up. Frozen 2 has her being depressed for just one song, which is way better. That's like, as far as pacing goes, I'm like, that's perfect. I honestly don't need more than a song. I can hardly handle this song. This song is too much. Olaf's dead.
Yeah.
End it all. End all of this. Because it doesn't matter.
Right.
If we end this movie and Olaf's dead, we've lost it all.
Yeah.
It's over. And so the idea that like that Pixar right now in my mind is like leading the way in like teaching us, like it's relegated to like Pixar and Brené Brown to like teach us how to feel complex emotion in a beautiful way. I want more of this in music, and that's why I gravitate towards Hozier so much, because it goes through that new song Francesca is just about like, after losing so much, given the chance to do it again, I will do it again.
Yeah.
Despite like, that's how much I love our experience and our time together.
Yeah.
Is that when it's ripped away, I will feel that pain entirely, and I will be tempted to like leave my heart entirely, and I will like shove myself back into my heart in order to feel that.
Mm-hmm. Would you prefer that I ask you about the process of making this album, or that I ask you about specific songs first?
You should ask me about specific songs first.
Great. I would like...
Well done preparing, my goodness gracious.
Thank you. I am a professional podcaster.
You're a thoughtful lady.
And a thoughtful lady. I would like to start with Tunnel, because I feel that it's very related to that thing of, I had a dream and now it's gone. I had the dream and now it's gone. I had the thing that I wanted, like the object of desire was here with me, and now via age or war or disease or divorce or death, that thing is gone. And there are a couple of songs on this album that I don't remember you writing, that maybe I didn't hear ever. There's some that I'm so completely unfamiliar with.
Sure.
And this first half of Tunnel, I had a dream, watched it fall from me, like hair from my head that covered my skin.
Mm-hmm.
Now that it's gone, I won't ever dream like that again.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know that I could, don't know that I can.
That song, Tunnel, always reminds me of Avatar: The Last Airbender. The secret tunnel, secret tunnel, and die. Oh, I just remembered the last part. And die. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, right. I just remembered the last part. And die.
Yeah.
Avatar: The Last Airbender was like a big influence on the lyrics when it says, "There is a night when the light disappears, and a time that forces your fears to the surface, a tunnel that winds in the dark with no purpose, but for loss and leaving behind."
Yeah.
There's this moment where Uncle Iroh tells Aang, Aang's just like, "What the heck do I do in this situation?" And Iroh's like, sometimes life is like a dark tunnel, and you can't see the way out of the tunnel. But if you keep moving, eventually you will see a brighter path or something like that. And as he says that, it like reveals this like beautiful underground lit up city that they earthbend down to. So that like the tunnel, this dark tunnel, does open up into something beautiful.
Yeah.
That is one of the options. There is another option of like in that episode of The Cave of Two Lovers, there are tunnels with dead ends, intentionally to trip you up, intentionally to leave you there stranded to die. And this is a place that like true love, will guide you through. But there are roads that are just for leaving behind. Part of what I'm really trying to figure out with growing up in general is there's this concept that I keep coming back to, like, what is growing up? Yeah. Growing up feels like I thought it was going to be this way. Why did I think it was going to be this way? Because all of pop culture and my family and the Bible told me, not the Bible, but like the people who were teaching about the Bible told me it was going to be a specific way. And then I was like, there's nothing here. There's nothing at the end of this tunnel. So what? And the answer being like, you leave it behind and you walk a different path. And that being like really sad.
Yeah.
This idea that like, and I do believe in this, that there's like no wasted time. And like, we've all walked a path, and some of us don't know, like with me and this music thing, like I don't know what's at the end. There is no light like right now. And it's just me making stuff. And the reason I make it is because I feel this like cosmic spiritual compulsion to do so. And then I put out all this effort to like try, I like develop. People don't realize that like these songs, they become these characters in your mind. You'll like listen to these demos alone and you don't share them with anybody, and you'll do this for months and they become friends to you. And then you take this bold step. You're like, I believe in you so much that I want to spend tons of money on you to try and get you to sound like what I can't make you sound like. And in doing so, I feel like there's like this trust that's established between like you and the song, being like, take me there. Like you say that I'm great. So like, take me there, like prove it to people. By the end, you get this song and it might be like totally different. And sometimes that's in a good way. And sometimes you feel like I just let you down. And really what you're saying to yourself is like, I let myself down. Sure. Like, and there's lessons to be learned, absolutely. But it's just like, I had a goal and I missed it. And that's just sad. Like there's things in there that are good. And again, like everybody wants to make it, but there's so much good. And you're like, you're growing and being like, do you know what it's like to like play a game and want to win? And then you lost. Like I came here to win. I had a goal. And I used all my resources and I tried my best and I fell short. And like, that's a very hard thing to stomach. And Tunnel is largely about that. It's about what happens when you try your hardest. And even worse, sometimes you get pieces of it. Sometimes you get the good thing. And it still isn't like, it isn't all the way there. The idea of like, now that it's gone, I won't ever dream like that again. That line, as I originally wrote it, and I don't know when this changed, it said, I may never dream like that again. Fair.
Yeah.
Somehow, I learned this today. Today, as I'm inputting the lyrics onto Music's Match, I learned that the phrase turned into, I won't ever dream like that again.
Wow.
Don't know that I could, don't know that I can.
Yeah.
Which is that line is hard.
Yeah.
Because that's how I really feel. To really want something, to try and fail over and over again, is an awful feeling. And it is why I feel it makes writing songs so difficult, because if you do come across one that you care about, you could work your hardest and miss. And it just feels awful to have conditioned and practiced and got ready for the big game, and then on the big game you had to catch it and you just didn't catch it. And it's like, that's it's just really hard to push through. So Tunnel's a really hard one.
Yeah.
Because those lyrics really mess me up every single time. Like, that's a song that I don't listen to that song haphazardly.
Yeah.
Because it's too real to me. That was the final song written on the record.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty accidental. It just kind of snuck its way on at the last minute.
Yeah. I don't know anything about the song Sleep at all. So I've listened to this album like 4 times total ever now.
Sure.
Wept every goddamn time. We will get to that. And then today I was like listening to Sleep again, being like, what the fuck is this? Like, where did this come from?
Is this new?
Do I know you? I mean, I like the idea. I love what you're saying about songs as characters, because really what that is like, it's almost like you've got water on your hands and you shook it off, and a little far-flung part of yourself sprang into existence from the excess of you-ness, right? It's you. Mm-hmm. This is like, each of these little characters is some Connor piece trying to be expressed in the world, which is why it makes so much sense that it would feel very painful to ever not live up to the hopes and dreams of those little pieces of yourself that would be folded into the concept of the grief and the loss and the what nowness.
Right.
I've never met Sleep, if that's a part of you.
Yeah.
Could you please tell me about this song by way of introduction?
I've told you about Sleep before. So Edward and Lindsay have a daughter who's now like a proper child.
Yeah, she's 5 or 6. And
Lindsay told me this beautiful story about her daughter, where she kind of got scared in the middle of the night because her daughter was like sleep talking, and she was reaching up, like she was sleeping in bed, like back to the mattress, and then reaches up and says, "I'm almost there," as she's reaching up in this really kind of spooky way. And I thought that was a really beautiful image for how I relate to dreams. Mm-hmm. In the chorus, it says, "I am almost there. I'm holding underneath." And this idea of like, you're dreaming, you're reaching, and then at the end of the chorus, it says, then the picture fades away. And like, that's the process of like sleeping and waking up. And like, it's very interesting what lines in this album make me cry. Mm-hmm. And there's a line after verse 2, and it says, "Barely naked anywhere these days." Mm-hmm. And I cried at that the other day.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah. We used to skinny dip all the time. We used to skinny dip and streak. And like, when you're under 18, these are super funny, reasonable things to do.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for the laws in this country that keep grown men from exposing themselves in public.
Totally.
At the same time, there is a freedom to being naked in public, and being naked with all of your friends in this like frivolous jump in the pool kind of way. It was a thing that we did like with just the boys. And so it was always this, it like never had anything in it other than playfulness and silliness and isn't this hilarious?
Yeah.
And it was. And that playfulness, I'm still extremely playful. But the degree to which I'm playful is greatly diminished. I think that's for good reason. I do not trust a lot of people. And I also think that is for good reason. I think a lot of people don't deserve your trust. A lot of those scenarios of like being that level of carefree. I don't often get to experience that in my life, like almost at all.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really hard thing to grapple with. And I don't think the song, like, I think these songs do a pretty good job of not like looking with like nostalgia on the past, because the past is there for a reason. I don't have access to skinny dipping with those 4 guys in that pool and spending the night at that place where the food is just, free because it's his parents paying for it, That world doesn't exist. Like, Hunter has kids. Chris is in very far state. Greg and I could skinny dip, but
That's true.
Where's the closest body of water we could do that? We'd have to find a pool.
And then you're just grown men in somebody's pool.
Then we're just 2 naked grown men in someone's pool that we're not that close to. So there's just there's so much less. And so let's play out this scenario where it does work out, and Greg and I are like, dude, let's freaking skinny dip in this. We do find a pool.
Yeah.
And it is someone we know. And then they're like, and then they hop in, and it's like, God, we don't know you like that. And so now it's just kind of a weird dynamic of being
even if you don't go to jail, it still could get weird.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know you.
Yeah. But the tone of this song doesn't feel saccharine or poignantly nostalgic. It also doesn't feel angry.
No.
In the way that, not that you're being angry right now, but the edge of that thing is gone. That's not what the song feels like. The song feels pretty soft.
The song is very soft because the song is about dreaming, which is a very big theme in the record, because dreams are the place that you can have things that you don't have in real life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why dreams are a really interesting place to express yourself. It's a part of you. You don't tell everyone all of your dreams.
No. Well, it's a way of being with yourself, which frankly is the underneath sort of outcry of what you're talking about in the frustration with the way that people ask you about songs.
Mm-hmm.
Is the underneath desire is just be with me. Just be with them. And I put a piece of me out and just interact with it. Just be with it and let it take on a new meaning as it comes into you. And dreams are that same kind of way. Not only do we not tell people most of our dreams, we don't even remember them. They're not about the story narrative driven part of ourself, like knowing something. It's just about, it's a way of being with the underneath piece.
Yeah. I think the song is sweet because that's how I view dreams, as this sweet place where that is still available to me.
Yeah.
And it's different than memory, because memory I'm awake for.
Mm-hmm.
Memory I don't experience. But dreams I experience as if they're real, as if they're right here. In my dreams, I'm back in my Lancaster home all the time. That it's, again, a concept of the self that I am divorced from.
The Lancaster house?
Yeah. They sold it.
That's all. Yeah. But that's what happens to childhood homes.
Very simple, reasonable thing to do when you have lived somewhere for so long.
Yes. My father still owns my childhood home, and yet I am not to be found in that space. Myself is no longer represented by that zone. At some point, ideally, I think we find ourselves severed from that origin structure as a representation of who we are and what contains us.
I don't know. I still feel represented by it.
You just said you're divorced from it.
I'm divorced from its physical form. I can't revisit it.
Okay.
But as far as how I think about it, I can close my eyes and just be there,
Mm-hmm.
There's this thing that happens in dreams where multiple dogs that have died, I'll be hanging out with them and I'll be petting them. And then in the middle of the dream, I'll realize this is a dream. You're dead.
Mm.
And then I wake up and it's awful. I hate that feeling. And it happens all the time. And it's always this sensation of whatever I'm experiencing, being why does this feel so off? This feels so off and I don't know why. And I'll really try to find it. And then I find it and then it's entirely gone from me.
Mm.
And being God, that is exactly how life feels.
Yeah.
Of man, that's just not mine anymore. Yeah, sometimes it can find a way back to you, but never in the same exact way. I could go buy the Lancaster house.
Right.
I mean, not in this economy. But if I like went and bought my childhood home, which is, fun fact, in case I ever became a billionaire, is one of the dreams. I will.
Yeah. You'll buy that, and I'm going to buy the Workaholics house.
Yeah, I'm going to buy that house, and no one will live in it.
It's just going to be a shrine.
It will be a recording studio where I go.
Okay.
And it's going to be a cool place where I just go and like, I make music, and it's going to be great.
I think that we should talk about stimulants.
Okay. Do you want to give me options if you're feeling lost?
No, it's having too much. I have too much about too many things. We can't talk about 10 songs.
It's true.
This is a deep podcast already.
We're in the deep end.
Uh-huh. Let's talk about stimulants. Stimulants was almost called, parentheses, the one Layne doesn't like.
Right.
At the beginning.
Right.
Because I don't like it.
That is how it was referred to
like it.
internally. Yeah.
From the get-go, I was like, that's an all right song.
Also, the one that Greg didn't like, I showed it to Greg, was like, is Layne wrong? He was like, I mean, it's interesting, I guess.
Oh, I thought that he did like it. I thought he was Greg loves to tell me I'm wrong. Then I sat down the other day and I listened to the album for the first time and was like, wait a second. And it's just no longer the one that Layne doesn't like. But it's so emotive. A lot of it is in the performance. The change in my feelings has to do with like, oh, Stimulants is now dressed appropriately.
Right.
Like, it's not a song that wants to be like heard by me on a voice memo in the kitchen, which is like you and the guitar. Like, that's not what the song is for.
Right.
And you like trying to be quiet in the apartment and not like yell, because it's a song for yelling.
Right.
The song is an outcry, and it's meant to be surrounded with a lot of texture and a lot of colors. And so the sound of the song has really made it for me, like made it accessible to me. And I would just love to hear you talk about the like very emotive nature.
Yeah, so this is that same problem. We had this same issue with Letters from Emily.
Okay.
Which is, like, to this day, one of my favorite songs I've ever written, hands down. But when I showed that to you initially, you were like, I love that you wrote this. I don't get it.
So kind.
Yeah. And that's kind of how it was, of just being like, you feel, I can tell that you feel something about this, but I don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like a very like nice thing that we have developed, of you like specifically saying like, you never say like, this is bad. You're like, I don't get it. Like, this isn't, I'm not there with, wherever you are, I'm not there with you.
Well, you also don't bring me bad songs. You leave those on the cutting room floor.
Right.
And, but I'm careful to not tell you that I love it if I don't love it.
Right.
Because I need to save that for when I love it.
Yeah. And when you don't love it, to me, that means I hate it.
Well, that part's not my fault.
Yeah.
It's just literally like, no one's more diplomatic than I am with
That's very
wording.
true.
So it's
Very
never
true.
my fault if you think I hate it.
So that's another example of like, when I initially showed you that voice memo, I knew what it was. Like, in my head, it already sounded like that. Like, it already sounds like the finished product. That's how frustrating it is to not get the correct finished product. This idea of like, no, it's in here and like, it's good.
Yeah.
And I can't convey that. And like,
you would like it if I could show it to you.
You would like it, and I would like it. I'm on your side. I really like how that one turned out. Obviously, there's like a yelling aspect to that. Like, we want me to have more emotive vocals, kind of in general.
Yeah.
And that has really emotive vocals, but it has like, it's just emotion song. It's like, it's not heady. Mm-hmm. It's pretty straightforward. Yeah. Like, the heaviest or like the headiest thought is like the first verse. People read the track list and they're like, stimulants, drugs. Stimulants are drugs. If you listen to this song, stimulants refers to watching your friends succeed and fixating on those friends in comparison to yourself. That is what the stimulant is. I can't rest because my friends are on the TV. Mm-hmm. I can't stop looking at the TV, so I cannot rest.
I have something to say. I literally thought you meant Friends, the TV show.
Hell yeah. That's tight.
This is
why I need to stop talking about what the songs are about.
This is when I learned that you meant your friends.
Wow, this is fascinating.
This is when I learned that you're Morrissey and you hate it when your friends become successful. Which is a song I showed you a billion years ago and you were like, I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
You are.
That's hilarious. This is why something is always lost when you talk about a song.
Well, I feel like I've gained something because I am trying to know you. So also, here's my note to you. My previous note was to other people about just interacting with your songs as a piece of you, savoring, enjoying, letting it be there. And throwing back to the Taylor Swift analogy, this is why people want to think that they know everything about Taylor Swift's life by analyzing her song lyrics as though they're so literally true because they care about her.
Right.
Like, I want to know what you're thinking about. I also am going to hold and experience your art in a respectful, sophisticated, like elegant, contextualized way and let the art do its work on me as separate because I do believe that the second the art leaves the artist, it now exists on its own. It's a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's for me. And whatever me and the art create based on my consciousness is a new thing that's not your business.
Mm-hmm.
So yes to that too. But the desire for specificity from probably most people, which we could talk about happy later and the people who don't care about you, but the people who do care about you want to know you.
Yeah.
I want to know that you didn't mean Chandler Bing.
Yeah. 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 I've had close friends become successful in the last couple of years. And how I describe this at shows is like, songs are not... I don't identify with my songs. My songs do not represent me entirely. Mm-hmm. My songs are about an emotion or a spirit or a time. When your friends do monetarily or career-wise or whatever better than you, like I want their future to be good and I want them to make a ton of money.
Yeah.
They deserve it. And
and because their art is so good. The music is so good.
Oh, yes. They deserve all the attention that goes their way because they have the ability to maintain it. They have the ability to maintain writing good records for the rest of their lives because they're fantastic people and artists. Mm-hmm. That being said, like at the same time, it hurts to not be the one who experiences that, which is why
everybody feels that way in every version of that circumstance at every layer of life.
Right. And the purpose of that song is just to embody that energy. Mm. It isn't like, I feel like I have to couch this so much when I play it live of being like, just so you got, like, I love these guys. Like, I want their best. And please don't come up to me after. That's the majority of what I have to tell people. Being like, please don't come up to me after this and be like, hey, like, it's gonna come for you someday. Like, there's no need to be like, you're on your own path. We're all on our own path. Right. And like, you just gotta like enjoy where you are right now. Mm-hmm. And it's like, yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I've watched that movie too. And I know that. Right. And we feel emotions in their entirety in an instant. Mm-hmm. And then they flash through us. Mm-hmm. And then we feel a different emotion. And so this idea of like, yeah, I can hold like all these things, all these emotions all at once. Mm-hmm. The amount of people being like, yeah. You can take drugs too, by the way. It's okay, man. And being like, I have a face that people think requires tons of advice. And I, for that reason and that reason alone, have a hard time with my face sometimes. It looks lost.
You think?
Oh, I don't know. It's like, I know. Some things I know, so.
Okay, so now we have to come to the end, which is end.
You see, I almost tried to sip this.
You tried to drink that microphone. You've used a mic before. Mm-hmm. I can't with this song. I have the lyrics in front of me now, and I can't look at them.
Yeah.
Because this is the saddest song in the world to me. Because it's the saddest song in the world to me, because it's the truest song in the world to me, because because it's true that what it means to have something is to now have the fear of losing that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I really have something.
Yeah.
And a big part of the feeling
And what you have is
you, baby.
you, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a big part of what we went through this year as a family, you and me, and as a your family larger, was the loss of someone. And part of the big pain of that is being with the person who we love, who's left, who loved them so much.
Yeah.
And all of us looking at that and then looking at the person that we have and love and having to handle the truth that we're going to be there someday, one way or another. It brings mortality to me in a way that mortality does not often come to me. I just don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I just don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And for a long time, I felt a little bit reckless about that. And then for a while, I was like, couldn't come soon enough, frankly. And now I'm not in that numb place or that dark place.
Right.
And I still don't really worry about it very much. But I listened to this song the other day and Let You Leave the House behind me. And I was like, I'm going to let you die before me, and it's going to hurt so much.
Yeah.
And that's just one of our commitments to each other, is that you get to die first.
Yeah.
And I mean it.
Yeah.
And it's going to be so sad. And it's just a lot to live and be a person.
Yeah.
And know that there is a natural and good and sacred and kind of divine expiration. And maybe the way that it happens is not right, but knowing like there's a cycle here, and there's a completeness that comes to everything and to everyone. And the completeness of this song, I cannot take. And we've spoken often in life, and really often recently, about my reflex to push away art that brings something to me that I don't want to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And I just keep listening to your song, even though I would like to push it away.
Yeah.
And it is making me love you more to feel sad about this. It's creating a realness to the having in a way that I think is really powerful and really profound, and that I hope other people also get from listening, and also in a way that makes me want to reject it so wholly. I want to spit it out so bad.
Yeah.
I also just want to really compliment the craftsmanship of the way that the album finishes out with this dense, real song that flows into just a beautifully crafted trumpet section that is a beautiful performance from Justin, and a beautiful decision of yours to let it carry us out. And it makes me, I don't know what happens after we die anymore. But I would like to think that souls would be carried away on like a bed of that kind of sound. You know, it's triumphant and it's poignant, and that instrument carries so many feelings within it all at once, and its context matters dramatically.
Yeah.
And so I think that's just a very beautiful sort of, it almost created like a mirage of feeling to go out from this album that contains so much in it.
Yeah.
So that's my compliment to the chef. And also some rage about the feelings.
I also feel a lot while listening to it. That horn section at the end, I told you, it contains my Spjörgnote, which is a reference to Eurovision the movie.
Yeah, Eurovision Song Contest.
Will Ferrell. Will Ferrell.
Just a little extra tease for Will Ferrell.
Will Ferrell.
And Rachel McAdams.
The Spjörgnote is a spiritual note that solves, the world's problems, basically.
Yeah.
And there's one particular note. There's a bunch of trumpet, there's trombone, and then there's me trying to double each of those parts. But I told you, I was like, oh yeah, I put together all the horn parts, and then I listened to it and I was like, just horns is it's it's a little much.
It's not quite right for you.
It's a little harsher than I had intended.
Huh.
And I was like, okay, well, what if I go ahead and double all of these lines with my voice on an
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, okay, great. So I did that. And then I realized, I was like, where did I go wrong? Some of these are just so out of whack. I was like listening and I was like, why does that sound awful? I was like, oh, I just messed up. I like didn't double this. But now there was all these like little weird like accidents that then I was just looking for like, okay, where are the parts that the accidents are like really bad, and like which of these accidents can I keep? And there was just like, there's one note in there that feels like it's an entirely different color than what Josh initially intended when he arranged that. And like, yeah, it's just this really interesting addition where like it's triumphant, but it is so mournful. I do think that's like what the image on the record is. It's triumphant and it's very mournful, and like it's haunting and strong. And I think that that's, if I may be so bold, something that I embody, which is like, a lot of people think I'm very sensitive, and that's true. But like they see that as like a weakness, and I'm like, no, I think I'm made very sensitive, and I'm capable of like being present in a lot of hard situations. This song is really hard because we've talked about this before, about how like sometimes people are like, oh yeah, when I go to heaven, I'm gonna like go be with Jesus, and I don't know, I'm just gonna be in this state of bliss. Or people are like, oh, you know, I don't know what I'm gonna be doing in the afterlife, and that's like deeply unsettling to me. Where I'm like, I don't care what you think is going to happen. What I care about the most is that if there is a way that you can find me, that you would swim to me and you would find me.
Yeah.
And if there is an ability to find me, that you would do it. Like, tell me that here while you can. Because that's how I feel about you. If there's a way to you, I will find you. And that's how I view love in general. And that's how I view like the concept. That's why dreams are so sweet for me. Because there are these like sweet little animals that I've been like away from for years. And yet sometimes I'm with them.
Yeah.
As harsh as it is to wake up, is it so far-fetched? This idea that like in your sleep you travel to a different realm where like you're just you can like explore for as long as possible until you like realize that it's a dream, and then you're like forced back into your mortal body, you know, like people say that like the experience of dreaming is the same as like the experience of being alive. You know, you're just in a place and you're sensing these things and you feel it all the same. You experience it all the same. Like that YouTuber, Dr. K, he talks about like there's a guy who was in a coma, and in that coma, he had a wife and 2 kids, and he came out of that coma like desperately mournful and crying because he realized like because he's here, he can never see them again.
Yeah.
I mean, like, and Dr. K was like, as a scientist, what do I say to that? I say like, I don't think that there's reason to believe that. But he was like, but as a person, like, and as his therapist, like, we have to mourn the people that you lost in the dream. Like, what you experienced in the dream is real to you. I think as long as there's a will, can you use it to find me, is like kind of my main thing that I care about.
Do you feel like there's anything left that you would have wanted me to ask you about, or any like pockets of what's in there that's hard to talk about that would be nice to have help getting it out?
We didn't cover what Lake is about.
Let's talk about Lake. Lake is certainly got the darkest imagery of anything you've ever written into a song. Like the word pictures are very intense.
Oh, okay, great.
There's a lot of fire and a lot of darkness, and there's trappedness and puddles and water that covers and water that washes away. From a pure cold read kind of a standpoint, there's tires and smoke and ashes.
Yeah, it's a dark read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it feel that way to you?
Yes and no. How I read the character. Again, this is a song that is like confusing to me in certain ways.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think the narrative is very clear in the song. There's a narrator who is speaking in the I, and then there's a character who is going downhill. The narrator is trying to care and express care for the person going downhill, and there is no stopping the person going downhill. That is a theme that I noticed in watching other people. Like, I can't control other people, no matter how much I care about them. And the phrase, like, I would cut, like, everyone else, they repeat a lovely sentiment to you. I would cut my hands and burn the land and give it all to you. And, like, that idea of being like, I mean it. They do not.
Yeah.
And I am here for you. And you seem like you're going to die by your own hand is like what that character does at the end. And I think it's such an interesting chorus because, like, so it says the darkness calls into the open, like the abyss, the arms of the open ocean, sinking down forever lonely. Darkness in here calling you to sink further into the ocean. The narrator, like, I love this song. I think this song's so cool because it expresses something so much better than I know how. Because this is how it feels to watch someone be sad and, like, to experience loss. Is like, I watched you staring into the lake and I'm wondering what to say, and then I'm watching your wheels turn as you, like, stare into the abyss. And there's just, like, so much lack of power for so much love and feeling. And I think that's it's a really hard thing to portray.
Yeah.
So it feels good to, like, feel like I really landed that.
Yeah.
And
it's a really great song.
yeah, and it remains like a mystery to me because I think that's a really complex emotion. And so, like, what that entails, like what other emotions that those people are feeling can continue to grow over time as you read into, like, what does it feel like to watch someone contemplate these things, to watch someone be called from the darkness in their own mind into for the forever lonely.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting thing to reflect on as someone who has felt called into the open by the darkness in my mind. And there's really nothing from the outside. Steady presence, hope, which do not feel powerful when you're the one having to just stand steady and be hopeful.
Right. Very interesting, but also strong, triumphant. I think that's it. I think that's all we got to talk about.
Okay, I made a reference to the people who don't care about you and happy, but let's leave that enigmatic.
Sure.
I love you.
I love you.
Thanks for talking to me about all these things.
Yeah, thanks for doing this.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have talked about it like this without you because I don't feel comfortable in other contexts.
Yeah. I think it's really great. I think you made something really great, and I really love it.
Thanks.
Good night.
Good night. I love you. I have been driving, rain on the ground. Stop at your house where the window is down and your smoke sticking out. Walk in the doorway, smells like a shower. Sleep on the couch with puddles around you.